So my father was fearless for a week. When he was approaching 60, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And when he hit the manic states, he had no fear of anything. And what this taught me was how important courage is to an individual and to a life and to a personal evolutionary journey, and how a person who is fearless can appear to be a completely different person. So when he had a plan in his mind, he would go work diligently in every step to achieve that plan without any fear. Now, the challenge was that he wasn't that connected to reality, and he had some other challenges, and he was penniless, so he was working against the odds. However, it was refreshing to talk to him in this state because he'd often been in the opposite state, whereas he lived his whole life around in a career, in a lifestyle that was like bolstered up by fear of losing things and fear of not having security. So just to see him give up everything and kind of saunter out in the world fearlessly was very profound for me. And I made courage one of the seeds in the Bloom model. The Bloom model divides life up into 12 fundamental seeds that you can use to change an individual or an organization. And I outline that in the Bloom Manifesto. I'll put a link in the description. And the reason I'm reiterating that today is because courage is so profound, and fear has to do with following the thread of your negative thoughts, your thoughts that keep leading you to the worst possible outcomes again and again. And if the more we follow the thread of those fearful thoughts, that creates a chemistry in our physiology. As Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief work shows, there's either a moving toward or a moving away from at the cellular level. He's a molecular biologist. So when you're in this fear state, your whole physiology is moving away from life, from the micro to the macro. What do you do in life to move toward life state? Now, one distinction that can be helpful is whether you're making this decision out of fear or whether you're making this decision out of love, or this business decision or this love decision, etc. So if you're staying in a relationship because you're afraid of being alone, that's different than staying in a relationship out of love and out of cultivation of weaknesses in yourself, out of care for the family dynamic, etc. Those are the two they seem like the same equation. They're fundamentally different. Likewise, if you're starting a new business because you're afraid, like a lot of people do a lot of things because they're afraid of being like their parents. The irony is when you do that, you become like your parents anyway. It's like this mystical process that brings you around full circle, where you went to Tibet, you change your name and gender, and then you still wind up as your father somehow. Knock on wood. So that's the paradox. And in the Gurdjieff law of 7, there's 7 movements between one octave and the next, in terms of like the octave is the being at this level, then being at this level. Each octave you're being at a higher level. And on one of the stages moving toward the next octave, you're going in the opposite direction. So it feels like you're moving backward when in actuality you're moving forward. So what you want to be is something like your parent at a higher octave. So you're continually moving up that scale. Fear gets in the way of that process. And every time you choose a fearful thought, you choose to indulge it, you choose to believe in it, which believing any thought is a huge mistake, generally speaking. Anytime you indulge in a fearful thought, that creates that neural pathway. That neural pathway gets carved more deeply, and that neural pathway, that thought pattern then becomes a habit, something habitual. You're locked in that. Fearful thought, fearful thought, fearful thought. You can train yourself to have a fearful thought about anything, and that's what the media perpetuates. Like, the other day I was stung in the head by 3 wasps because I was walking away from my daughter's school, and someone had stirred up, I think it was a hornet's nest, and then these 3 hornets stung me in the right side of the head. I was like down on the ground, just the pain was so intense, and it was like this burning, and I couldn't do a lot. I ran away, and then I just went on the ground like, wait for this buzzing to go away. So if one isn't trained to fearful thoughts, you think, oh, there's danger all over. There's a hornet nest over there, a paper wasp nest, and there's anything could happen, right? In this case, I'm like, oh, some ninth graders threw rocks at the nest and the hornets were mad and they stung me in the head. There you go. Now, there's a deeper meaning, of course. There's always a deeper meaning. So if you can tune into the deeper meaning, you let go of the fear. And as someone once said, gratitude is the antidote to fear. And that's sort of true. It's one of those oversimplified, like reverse paradigms that people want to use to sell things. In truth, focusing on the whole picture is the antidote to fear. Because even like, if your main fear is hunger, as mine was, as a starving artist, you might consider working on fasting. Because I've lived for 20 days on just liquids, 10 days on just water, 7 days on no food or water, on nothing. So now that fear has been eradicated. Now, because I know like within 7 days I could find something to eat or drink. So I'm not that worried about it. And as I'm filming this little notification, in Chapel Hill here, there's a lockdown notice because there's a gunman around. So they say stay inside, and they say your children are in this school where there's a soft lockdown, so we're going to keep them inside. So you have a lot of evidence to be afraid most of the time. And being courageous is going against that. Now, the chances of something happening to someone you know are very, very, very slim. And yet they're still present. What if someone you know dies or you die? If you're keeping your vision on the bigger picture, what is the bigger picture for you? What you're here to achieve, what you're here to achieve as a soul, your soul evolution, have you laid a legacy for your family, etc. So that's the bigger picture. And in my perception, that keeps you out of this fear mentality. Another concept is to pivot your thoughts. So when you're going down a fearful trajectory, I hate life and I don't like myself. You're going down this trajectory. You don't leap the scale to the 700 spectrum in Power versus Force, the book, and think all life is wonderful and I am wonderful. Because there's too many steps in that paradigm. You'll see something about pivoting and Askin is given the book, that you'll regress and slide back down. It's just inevitable. You have to slide back down if you try to leap 20 octaves at once. So instead you pivot. This thing about the world is okay, and this thing about me is okay. Dink, dink, dink. You're just upping the improving every day. This idea of a 1% improvement every day makes you way better than a 500% leap and then a 520% regression. So how do you keep moving forward? You do that incrementally. You do that with thoughts. You do that with personal evolution. You do that when you're moving from octave to octave. So I just wanted to present a little model of courage and how do you achieve more of it. Is that important? Yes, we've understood that's important. Another thing is courage is intimately tied with your physiology and your mind. So if you stand up, if you put your chin up, if you're here in the radiant light, you're more courageous. If you smile, you're more courageous than if you're frowning and your head's down and your solar plexus is sunk. You're in the spirit and the embodiment of cowardice. That's you. So take a breath. Feed yourself. Nourish yourself with what's most real. Look at nature. This will free you up from the specter of fear. Fear as in false evidence appearing real. Don't fall for the ruse, because fear is one of the main control structures. If you look at any news, oh, that's supposed to make me afraid. Okay, I'll look at the news with that in mind. And be not afraid. Be courageous so that you can do what you came here to do in this world. Isn't that beautiful? So I'm Stephen Budden. Subscribe to my channel. I'll see you on the other side. I run a Love of Life challenge every month. You can find the link in the description. Thank you so much.